now, Rishi Sunak has defended his plan to house up to 500 asylum seekers on a barge in Portland Harbour in Dorset, calling it fair.
Yes, part of the government's strategy to end the controversial practice of housing asylum seekers in hotel accommodation, which currently costs the taxpayer up to £7 million every single day.
Well, joining us now to discuss this further is the reporter at Politico, Stefan Boscia. Good morning to you. Really good to have you on the programme with us. So tell us what we know about the Bibby Stockholm, it's being called. It is this barge. We understand it can house up to 500 migrants. It's not very many, is it?
No, it's not, Ellie, especially considering we have around 50,000 migrants, undocumented migrants, who are living in hotels around the country. And this policy is trying to solve that problem of trying to make it a much cheaper bill for the government, considering that a lot of these hotels that they're in cost, upwards of £100 a night, and it's a very expense for the government. But this idea of housing them all on barges, it creates quite a few problems for the government. I mean, firstly, they're trying to do it in Dorset, which is a very, strong Conservative voting area. And even the local Tory MP, Richard Drax, doesn't want the barge there. And there are real concerns of having 500 people who can come and go from the barge being moored on, a relatively small area. And I think that this is the sort of policy which might look like the government is doing something and tries to give the appearance of a government that is fresh with ideas, but it doesn't seem like it's really a long-term solution to what is quite a long and drawn-out and tractable problem.
Well, Stefan, there are 222 bedrooms on board, 506 asylum seekers, a cost of £20,000 a day. That works out about £50 a night. So at least it is cheaper than hotels. But one thing that's happening here is NIMBYism. We've seen Richard Drax doesn't want them off the shore of his constituency because, of course, it may affect the tourism industry. So this is just another sticking plaster, it feels like.
It is, and we've also seen similar attitudes from other Tory MPs, like people like James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, when there were suggestions that migrants could be placed in military bases. So I think that this is a really widespread issue throughout the Tory party of where do you actually place migrants, where MPs will be happy to have them, considering that this is the government's number one priority or near to the number one priority. It's very easy for MPs and, ministers to line up and say, we 100% agree with the illegal immigration bill, which basically bans people from small boats coming over. But when it gets down to it, most of them won't want to actually, solve the current backlog we have and house the migrants we have now in their own areas.
I wanted to ask you, Stefan, about another story that we're seeing this morning. It's a letter from Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. And in this letter, he's revealed that almost 100 Metropolitan Police officers have been diverted from serious crime squads to focus on internal standards in a bid to root out colleagues that are deemed unfit for the job. Now, that is very concerning news to lots of people waking up this morning, that 100 of highly trained police officers in serious crime units are essentially being taken off the job.
Crime rates are already through the roof in London. It's, a complete disaster what's happening here. And if you look at the, spike in violent crime and the spike in organised crime post-COVID, this is a serious worry. But, I do understand where the Met's coming from in the sense that there are such deep and underlying problems in the force. We've had a recent review into them by the government, and it's found the Met to be institutionally racist and misogynist. And we've had instances of officers like Wayne Couzens and David Carrick committing the most serious of crimes. In one instance, murder; in another instance, sexual assault. So I understand the need to clean up the Met, but this seems like a very bizarre way to go about it when we already have serious problems with crime in the capital. I mean, a lot of areas are getting particularly dangerous and particularly, unruly for police to crack down on.
Stefan, there's another scandal this morning on the front page of The Times. This time, more cash for access. Trouble for the Conservatives. MP for Blackpool South, Scott Benton, who's the chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on betting and gambling. What's happening there?
This is an absolutely disgraceful story. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Scott Benton, there's a video of it that everyone should watch on the Times. It is him being recorded by undercover reporters, and they're asking him very brazenly, if we pay you, will you go and lobby ministers for us? Will you try to get at the results that we want? And the reporters say that they are from the gambling industry and they represent people from the gambling industry. And Scott Benton very, openly and without any hint of subtlety at all says that he's willing to, for money, go and try to change the wording of a bill to try to water down gambling laws. And this is the sort of thing that Rishi Sunak doesn't really need, and the Conservative Party has acted very quickly to suspend the party whip from Scott Benton. And I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't shown, if he isn't allowed back into the party, because for a party that has struggled with integrity and honesty issues over the last year, this is the last thing they need. And I think that something like this shows that many MPs really are for sale on both sides of the ledger, that this isn't just a Conservative Party problem.
Well, Stefan, he's already had the whip withdrawn, and this is the seat that only very recently went Conservative. It's historically been a Labour seat. There could be a danger of a by-election here, and if so, this could be a bellwether of the forthcoming general election. Tory HQ will be furious with this guy, won't they?
Absolutely. And, when Rishi Sunak became PM, he stood at the front of Number 10 and said that his lodestar, his absolute base of being Prime Minister will be on integrity, will be on honesty, will be on professionalism. This does not project that. And for a party that's already so far behind in the polls, they really need to have, an almost perfect 18 months. They need to be free of scandal. They need to be free of anything that makes them look as if they're out of touch with the people. This has been a big problem already they've had after, the whole Boris Johnson fiasco and Liz Truss. So I think that it's especially damning coming up to these May local elections, where a lot of these red wall seats, these old northern traditionally Labour areas which voted Brexit, they are up for election in the local elections in May. Scott Benton is in one of these seats. So I think that the Tories be very, very nervous that they could get a serious kicking at these elections by these areas they need to hold in the next election if they have any chance of forming government.
Okay, Stefan Boscia from Politico, thank you for your time. It's one a rollercoaster ride waits, not just in Blackpool, but the entire Tory party. Thanks for input today.